webcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning. I'm David Goldstein. Welcome to the Micrographics webinar. We'll be talking today about some questions that people commonly ask me about Micrographics and how to do things in Micrographics. And I will answer those questions. And at the end, I will save some time. So if you've got some questions, you can either ask them during the webinar, and one of my colleagues, Kyle, will be checking the questions in GoToWebinar, or you can save them until the end and ask them to me. The webinar should last about half an hour, and we'll just go through a bunch of things that are relatively common questions that people are asking, and I will demo our software as we go, and feel free to ask questions as we go along. First thing that I want to talk about is a question that I got that we get often is how to adjust the labels on the x-axis. As you can see in this area chart, we've got a lot of labels on the x-axis because we have data points for each year between 1990 and 2016. And there is in Micrographics a very easy way to share with it. I don't know. Cool. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to double click on this chart, and I'm going to show you with the Micrographics ribbon how to change the number of labels on the x-axis. So just here under Micrographics in Edit Chart, in Bars and Series, in the Format section of the ribbon, if you click on the Bars tab, at the very bottom, you see this feature, Show Every Nth Bar. So right now it's 1. If I change it to 2, now I'm only showing the even years, and obviously I can change it to 3 or 4. But 2 is probably the right number for this data set. So very easy to do. Open the chart, go to Format Bars and Series. In the Bars option, show every nth bar. And this works in Excel or in PowerPoint on the Mac or on the PC. Second question we often get is if my data are coming in basically as rows, but they need to be shown in Micrographics as columns, can I treat the data as if it were transposed, even if I don't transpose the data? So here you can see that I've got a P&L statement, an income statement for a company, and it's coming in as a column, which is typical for an income statement where each category of income or expense is showing up as a row. There's a very easy way in Micrographics to treat the row data as if it was the data as if the rows were columns and the columns were rows. To do that, you just open the data sheet and just go to Micrographics under Data, click on Chart Data. And in the data sheet, in the upper right-hand corner, we have this button, Switch Bars Series. So if you click on this Switch Bars Series button, it will treat each of these rows as if they were bars, and this one column as if it were a series. So if you go into Bars and Series, you will see that we just have the one series, which corresponds to the column, and all of these bars, which correspond to the rows. The Switch Bar Series button is in a little different place in Excel because there's no Micrographics data editor. It's just right in the ribbon in Excel. So very convenient. very, very nice in a cascade chart. Oftentimes in a Marimekko chart, also you want to do switch bars in series if your data are coming in typically transposed. Third thing I want to show you is how to add data to a chart, how to add text to a chart. So here you can see in this chart that I wanted to add some text about each bar. And this is data on on car sales for different types of cars, different types of electric vehicles. And I wanted to show not only vehicles sold in each type as a total, but also the top seller. And I wanted just to provide a little information. If you didn't know what an all-electric car was, you'll know that the Tesla Model S is an example, and hybrids, the Prius is an example, etc. So to do that, all you need to do is put that in your data sheet. So one of the nice things about Mecographics is that in the data editor, which is just a little spreadsheet, you can put in numbers or you can put in words. So here in my data sheet, I have a row called vehicles sold, which corresponds to the first data row, and a row called top seller, which corresponds to the second data row. And in that data row, I just have the words, the text for each of the best sellers. So, and if I went into bars and series, you would see that I'm just showing under series, I'm just showing top seller as a data row and vehicles sold as a data row. And the details, which I copied from the web, I'm not showing at all because I didn't want, this was just too much detail. This is, I found all this information on a website. I just created summaries over here, and I'm showing the summaries in the data sheet as I'm showing summaries in the chart here, and I'm showing the two data rows here. So very easy to do that. I've got fairly long descriptions for each of these, for each of my series, and I'm showing them as a legend here on the right-hand side. So one other variant on that I'll show you in this chart here. Here I've got even more data. I really wanted in this chart to explain what employer meant in terms of healthcare, what non-group meant, what Medicaid, Medicare, et cetera meant. So, and the descriptions were fairly large, fairly long. So I'm just showing them all here in my legend. And to get that really long legend, I just make myself a really long series name. So you can see just here in cell A2, I've typed employer includes those covered by employer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And each of these just has the really long description, which shows up in the legend on the right-hand side. I did not want the long descriptions in my series names, so I just went and, here, let me just restore that series name. So that series name should look like this. It should have the full long description plus the value plus the percent. I just went in here and double-clicked and edited and deleted all of this other content from the series name to create this smaller series name that I have here in my chart. So again, I have my long description, I'm showing it as my legend, and then I have my series name, which I've shrunk for each of these for each of the items in the chart itself. Next, I wanted to show you how to use legends and color as a way of adding a new variable to a chart. So in this little Marimekko chart here, we've got a bunch of different cities, and we've got the pedestrian fatality rate for each of those cities, and I want to group those cities so that that we can distinguish between the cities in the Northeast from the cities in the Southwest and the Midwest, et cetera, et cetera. So here, my data for this chart, which doesn't distinguish by region, my data are just organized here as a series of rows. Just 3 rows, 1 row for the fatalities, 1 row for the fatality rate, 1 row for the number of fatalities, and 1 row for the population. So here you can see I'm showing population and number of pedestrian fatalities as data rows, and then I'm showing the fatality rate as the column, and the width here is proportionate to the population. So I want to make this chart a little more interesting by adding a legend, which you can see in this chart example here. So here I've got a legend, and I'm grouping all of my Southwest cities together by making them black. My Southeast city is orange. My West Coast cities are green. My Northeast cities are gray, and my Midwest cities are red. And I'm just doing that by splitting my data into 4 different rows. So I've got a series for Northeast, and I only have the New York and Philadelphia values in that series, a series for Southeast with just Jacksonville, Midwest with just Chicago, Southwest with the 4 Southwestern cities, and West with the 2 Western cities. So once you do that, then you can just assign colors to the series and show the colors as the legend. So oftentimes you want to add another dimension to your chart and use colors as an extra dimension. You can do that by establishing different rows for each color as I did here. Sometimes I'm just doing it more in a brute force method, in just selecting everything that's grouped together, changing the colors on everything that's grouped together, and then manually editing my legend to match the colors. So there are ways to do that. The legends in Mecographics are very flexible. It's easy just to go in and just type and re-edit legend items if you need to. And also easy to reassign colors just by double-clicking and saying I want these segments to be a different color. So you can change colors and you can change legends very easily with the software. Another question that's very common for us is, can I take my company color palette and make that my standard color palette for Mecographics? This is probably the question I get asked most often when I'm training new Mecographics users, and we do that in the Mecographics tab using this feature we call Preference Manager. And the Preference Manager feature really gives you the ability to customize the default look of your Mecographics. You can do that in a couple of different ways. You can change your default settings for font size, for margins, and more commonly, you can add custom color palettes. So let me just show you how I would do that. So if I want to add a new color palette, I would just click on New, and it would launch this color palette editor. And the easiest way to start with a color palette is to find a PowerPoint theme file that your company uses, or a file with your company's colors in PowerPoint, just a PPT file like this one. Open it, and here I chose Add Colors from File, PPT file with extra shades. This will take the 7 colors that PowerPoint stores create shades based on those colors, and load them into your color palette. So all of those colors will appear on the right click now when you use this color palette. But the next thing you need to do after that is create what we call a draw order. So the draw order would be, well, my first series in my chart is going to be blue, my second is going to be green, my third is going to be orange, my fourth yellow, and then if I have a fifth series, maybe I'll make it a gray, and if there's a sixth, maybe it'll be a light blue. And the more colors I put in my draw order, that's going to be the number of colors that will be used before they start repeating in Mechographics. So just with these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, if I have a chart with 7 series, the 7th series would start with the dark blue again. So the more colors you put in here, the more colors we will use before we start repeating in the draw order. You need to do the same for lines. So I'm just going to do that quickly. And then you need to give this theme a name. We'll call it test colors. Then we're going to save it. And now it shows up here in my user interface, in my preference manager. I can click on this button, which is going to show in the user interface, and I can set this as the default. So now if I do a new chart, you'll see that the first series is going to be blue and the second one is going to be green. So I'll just put in a simple stacked bar chart, and it will be created using those colors. And if you wanted to, you could change the border colors and other colors in your theme so it looked the way you wanted it, to look. The general notion with the preference manager is that anything that's color related is related to a theme and will change based on the theme that you use, based on the palette that you use, and anything that is not, say, fonts, font names, and font size and margins, you're setting in the preference manager settings for all the charts that you're working on. Next thing I wanted to show you with colors is applying cell colors from the spreadsheet. So we were often asked, can I take the colors in my spreadsheet and have the segments in my Mechographics chart follow those colors? So sometimes in a cascade chart, you'll want all of your positive numbers to be green and your negative numbers to be red, in which case, if you use Excel conditional formatting and set the fill colors for the negative cells to be red and the fill colors for the positive cells to be green, then Mechographics can pick up those colors. And it doesn't just have to be conditional formatting. Here in this chart, I decided to use the colors of the universities as the colors of the segments. So I found those colors and I applied them as fill colors in each of these cells. So Princeton is a nice orange, and Columbia is a light blue, and Harvard is a crimson. Then when you create your chart, in the color option, you have this option, apply cell colors from spreadsheet. So this is not the default. The default is just to take the colors from your Mechographics palette. But if you want to use the spreadsheet colors, you just click apply cell colors from spreadsheet, and it will apply those spreadsheet colors. So this is useful, as I said, for Excel conditional formatting. If you're making a lot of Marimekko charts and you want each competitor to be the same color across different charts, or each product line to be the same color across different charts, then this is then apply cell colors from spreadsheet, and using the fill colors can be useful for that as well. Want to show you a couple more things. One thing we saw a lot when people are working in Excel, they often want to make the same chart with different data. They want to basically create a copy of an existing chart and then change the data behind that chart. And that's very easy to do with Mecographics. So I'm going to go back to Excel. So here I made this really nice cascade chart. It's got axis breaks. It's got some nice colors. It's got a bar comparison line, and it's working off this data here. Say now I want to have the same chart in the same format, but I want to work from this data set here. All I do is copy this chart, Control C, paste, Control V, move it to this data set if I want to, just for clarity. Double click on the chart. And then under Edit Chart, you just say Change Data Range. So this chart, because it's a copy of this chart, is working off the original data range. If I just change it to the new data range, click OK, the chart will update. Oops. And now it's working from the new data range. So it's 1995 is 3000. Here it's 2800. So very easy to make a copy of a chart, do a cascade for one division, make it look the way you want it to look, copy it and use it for a different division. Last thing I want to show you is chart animation. This is a question that came yesterday. How do I animate my chart? I want to show. I want to tell a story with a stacked bar chart. But I don't want to give away my punchline too soon. So I want to make my chart animated. I want to have the first bar come, and then maybe on click the second bar come. So here, let me just do that again to show you. Cool, second bar. That is doable with Mecographics. Requires a little bit of effort, but not too much. So this chart will do that. This is the original Mecographics chart. I can double click it and edit it in Mecographics. In order to animate it, I'm going to make a copy of it. I'm going to duplicate the slide. And then I'm going to take this chart, right click, ungroup it. And when you ungroup a Mecographics chart, it turns it into a series of objects. So each box here is an object. To work with this chart well, you've got to ungroup a second time. And then once you do that, you can select, here I'm going to select everything in my first bar, and then also select my x-axis. And then I'm going to go to Format, Group all that together. And then I'm going to go to my animation pane and say I want that to fly in, and I want it to fly in from the left. And then I'm going to select everything in my second bar, including those linked lines. I'm going to group all that together. And I'm going to go to my animation pane, and I'll have that fly in again from the left, and maybe delay it half a second. So now when I run my animation, I can have my chart come in. If I'm in slideshow mode, we can have the chart come in pieces and sort of reveal as you'd want it for in a presentation. So very easy to do. The only thing I'd suggest that you do if you're doing chart animation is make a copy of your slide, because this is no longer an editable mechographics chart. It's just a bunch of objects. So I keep a copy of my chart here in case I need to edit it, and then I've got my animated version. So I would typically take my real chart and then maybe hide it or put it in my backup slides, and then work with that, and then share the chart with the animation. So that's what I wanted to work you through. That was I don't know, maybe a dozen or so, or maybe 10 questions and answers. I hope you found them useful. I will stick around for a little while and answer your questions. If you've got some specific questions, feel free to, and you haven't asked them, you haven't shared those questions through, and my colleagues have not answered them for you already, feel free to use the question setting in the GoToWebinar to ask a question. I will stick around and answer questions for you. We shared this presentation. We will also share the video. We'll send you a link to the video, and I would also encourage you to take a look at our website if you've got other mechographics questions. Here you've got on our website, you've got access to our chart gallery, which has got about 200 plus charts in it, a bunch of videos, a longer 90-minute training webinar if you're new to mechographics, some short videos to answer specific questions like how to work with the preference manager or how to make a bar mecho chart. I would encourage you to subscribe to the chart of the week. If you do, every week you'll see another example of mechographics charts. And I would encourage you to use our Ask an Expert button in mechographics here. If you've got questions, we'll just that'll send us an email, and you're always welcome to send me an email directly or call our main number and get support that way. Great. Well, thank you all for attending. I will stick around and answer questions, and feel free to type them in, and we will give a shot at answering them.